SEALs are human too, right? Yeah. And so it's very easy for all of us veterans who have been in life and death circumstances, or whatever, drove a ship that was $500 million and like 800 people on board, or whatever, right? Whatever your journey is, everyone, whether you're enlisted or officer, has done amazing things, and you go in the real world, and it's easy to kind of overestimate your abilities, be naive about what other people are going to trust you to do, be naive about what the character of other people is like, or be in denial about that. Be hard on yourself, which I have too, where it's like, damn it, I did this and this and this and this, yet I can't get traction in this area of life or business. Like, what is wrong with me? And there's been periods in my life where I was like really hard on myself about that. But obviously you're not going to make any progress if you're so hard on yourself.
Yeah. Welcome to the In the Field podcast, where we speak to veterans, service members, and those in the transition process to learn about their stories. Andrew, nice to meet you.
Almost committed a faux pas in the first second.
Exactly. Well, we'll just end it there and call it good.
There we go.
Thank you so much for being on the podcast, and can't wait to have you on a second time.
But I hope it was as good for you as it was for me.
It was.
Okay,
well, thank you so much. I know you got a lot going on in the city, so thanks for taking a little time out of your day to meet with me. First time meeting.
First time, yeah.
When was the last time you've had an MRE?
It had to have been maybe 17 years ago.
Okay.
At this point.
Are you excited or nervous? Or somewhere in between? Just completely neutral on it.
I mean, there's a little bit of negativity beneath the surface.
Right.
But also, there's a little nostalgia there, I guess.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, let's get into it. Which MRE would you like? We have a whole bunch. It's your pick. We got
The flavors have changed a lot.
There is a pizza one in there. If you want to be the first to try the pizza.
Interesting.
Beef ravioli. We got even Southwest style beef and black beans. We got tuna.
I'm gonna do chicken burrito bowl.
Okay,
that's what I'm gonna do.
I've noticed the chicken ones tend to be pretty darn good.
Yeah.
What should I do?
I think there was one way back when that was, what was it? It was called Country Captain Chicken.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I don't think I had that one. So I joined
2011.
So I'm assuming maybe something's shifted. Because when did you get out of the service?
2008.
2008.
Yep.
Yeah, because I've heard they've been updating and shifting and changing over the years. So each guest, I think, has slightly different MREs.
Well, has any guest yet requested a winter MRE?
No, not yet. What are those?
They're better.
Are they?
They're better. That's what they are. Yeah.
Is it a different style, or because I know they had the first strike packages or whatever, which were just sandwiches. They were something. They were slightly different.
Sandwiches.
I don't know. I remember
Jersey Mike's in an
exactly.
MRE.
Just I might be completely misrepresenting that and misremembering. But what were the winter MREs? They
came in white packaging to blend in with the snow and ice, as you might imagine.
Okay.
And they were just better suited for frozen conditions and all that stuff. And yeah.
I'm going to have to now find those on eBay to bring them in if they're not all expired. But they should just last forever. So we either get sick or enjoy some nice winter MREs.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, let's break into this. Right. I decided to metaphorically jump on the grenade and do the pork sausage patty with maple flavored, because these were never good when I was in. I don't know if you've ever had them. The old ones were terrible.
Speaking of...
I was gonna say
my hands are slippery. I must have
feel free to. That's why we brought it. That's why we brought it.
Look at me, lame from the beginning here. All right.
The question we ask all our guests too is: do you want them heated or unheated?
Oh, there we go. Heated.
Heated. We can go heated.
Yeah, 100%.
All right, we'll make it slightly more palatable.
I mean, it's not that I never ate a cold MRE, but if I have to choose, or if I get to choose, rather.
Exactly. When you have the opportunity. So what do you got?
Let's see what I got.
Heater packet. I think this is the beef.
I
love it. They don't put everything in individual packages, so you have to just read the printed. Yep, that's the pork sausage, granola.
Okay, I have lemon lime flavored.
Those are good.
No fruit juice. That's the funniest thing I've ever seen. Lemon lime flavored no fruit juice. There's trail mix with pretzels. There's tortillas, toaster pastry, chocolate chip.
Oh,
I don't remember those. Toaster pastries?
Oh, I had that one yesterday actually. Not bad at all.
And then cheese spread with bacon.
It's pretty good. Had that with my last guest. The cheese bacon is fantastic.
Interesting.
As expected, this one is not great. We got granola, grape beverage powder, no fruit juice, pork patty. I think these maple muffin tops were legitimately pretty tasty. If
Interesting.
it was the same as the old one, but let's. You want to start with the snacks?
Yeah, let's start with the snacks. Wait, what's your snack?
Well, I got dry roasted peanuts, which are probably gonna just taste like regular peanuts. I'll try this maple muffin top first.
Okay.
So as we open these up, what's the story of Andrew? You went to Naval Academy, then joined the Navy, obviously, going in as a Navy SEAL officer. But what was the decision making? Like, what drew you to the Naval Academy? What did you do while you were there? And what ultimately made you decide you want to go the Navy SEAL route?
Yeah. Well, the simple question to the what did I do when I was there, there's not a lot of variation in what people do at a service academy, obviously. So, the cheeky answer is kind of the same as everybody else. Decision making to go to the academy was I'd grown up. My dad was from India, immigrant, and grew up in Daytona Beach, Florida area near the water. He was very, like a lot of immigrants, very patriotic, sometimes more than other Americans.
Right.
And so even though he had never served and no one in my mom's family had, there was that little bit of that ethos and service, things like that. And so pretty early on knew that I wanted to join the military in some capacity, really, because I wanted to learn how to be a leader. I was also the oldest of 7 children.
Wow.
Probably impacted things a little bit.
How many bedrooms?
There were 1, 2, 3, so 4 kids' bedrooms.
Okay.
Yeah, and so I'm the only one, I think, who had their own bedroom the whole time. So I
the benefits of being the oldest. You got to. Was it through bullying and show of force, or were you just kind of drawing the lucky straw there?
There was no show of force, but there was I did live over the garage, which was like far away from everybody else when I was older.
So the recluse.
Once my parents had, that many children, at some point, someone needed to move.
Right.
And they weren't going to put the younger children out away from parents and supervision and everything else. So that's a little bit it was a little bit of a trade-off situation. Yeah.
Try that. This one's actually pretty darn good. I don't know.
Okay.
If you'd like to try, obviously no pressure.
The trail mix is just okay.
Is this the pretzel one or?
Wow, it's really dry. Oh my God.
Yeah. No, I mean, what's great about eating MREs on a podcast is we just dry out the mouth of every guest so that they can't.
It's a strategy.
Can't chat. Yeah, exactly. So obviously you must have been fairly academically minded or doing well academically to get into Naval Academy. Was that your first choice and kind of only school, or were you looking at other options?
You want me to say my first choice was West Point, don't you?
Yes. That was a...
So it was my first choice Although I did apply to West Point and Air Force because I was like, well, no offense to any Air Force listeners, but Air Force was my backup.
Yeah.
I would have gone to West Point if I didn't have the Naval Academy option. Right. I lucked out and was able to get into all of them. Yeah, like obviously West Point's an amazing school, and I knew that I figured I wanted to be on the ground.
Yeah.
Not in a plane, not on a ship.
Right.
And so, but I also knew, based upon some exposure growing up to a SEAL who was a stepdad of a guy I swam with in high school, I'd always thought about special operations, and there were a couple key like magazine articles and books that almost every special operator that I've talked to who's my age, my era,
right,
like they all saw those articles and read those books. And so it was just, there was something about it because it wasn't every SEAL. These aren't books by SEALs, right? They're other journalist types like trying to peer into this world that really no one had looked into very much except for movies, right? Like Rambo and Arnold Schwarzenegger sort of stuff.
Right.
And so it was eye-opening, and you didn't have the self-aggrandizement of some folks out there. Right. And it's not like every person knows what a Navy SEAL is like they do today.
Yeah.
And so there was a little bit of a mystique around it. So anyway, I knew I wanted to do that, and there was the stepdad guy that I mentioned that it's the kind of thing where you are, when you're in proximity to someone, the how do I want to say, like, it's not as magical anymore, and it's not unachievable anymore.
Yeah.
You know, he's just a normal guy.
Right.
Right. About as old as I am now, probably.
Right.
I'm like, if he can do it, I can do it.
Yeah. That's the good, like, 18-year-old or 17-year-old mentality, right? It's like, this guy did it. Yeah, I think I can do it too.
Right. Right.
But then you ultimately you kind of proved yourself right. And so you go in the Naval Academy knowing you want to be a Navy SEAL.
Yeah.
I'm not quite familiar with kind of how did you have to kind of stack rank your choices, or was it a guarantee that you were going to be able to go to BUDS training?
No, that would have been cool. So there are some enlisted routes where, by the way, the maple muffin top was really good. Yeah, I'm
not bad at all.
I'm not much of a sweets person, but like I feel like if that was just in a coffee shop and I grabbed one, like I wouldn't complain.
And if you're in the field roll credits, that's good amount of calories right then and there.
Yeah. Good point.
Yeah.
Good point. I like that plug. It's not your first rodeo here.
Exactly. Yeah.
So yeah, there are some enlisted paths where you can go, where you're assured to get to BUDS if you basic underwater demolition steel training. Probably as long as you do XYZ in boot camp and after. I believe there were like two guys when I was there, officers who at BUDS, who had been guaranteed billets somehow. It was some weird OCS route.
Right.
But Naval Academy, you show up and you could be doing anything. Right.
Were you nervous about getting into were there any positions you really didn't want to do, or kind of what were your stack rank choices? Because you get like 3 or 5 or something like that.
I think I want to say it was 3 back then, but it could have been more. It could have been more. But I chose 3 though, because I believe. Oh yeah, I know what it was. It was SEALs, and then something that's called Spec Ops. Okay. But it's basically diving. It's basically deep sea diving stuff. But somehow the terminology got twisted over time.
Yep.
And so then, if I'm being honest, like I didn't really try that hard for my number 2.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I probably all veterans believe pretty strongly in preparation, but it's like one of those times where you end up in whatever it is, a customer, sale conversation or an interview or something like that. And you just realize like after 5 minutes, you're like, I am so underprepared for this right now. That's what it was like in my spec ops interview. And so, and then my third choice, ironically, was one that I didn't actually want, but I knew was the path to get where I wanted to go, which was surface warfare.
Okay.
I.e. being on a ship.
Right.
And so that's what I got.
Nice. So you got your third choice, or you did get?
No, I got my third choice.
Okay.
I got my third choice. Yeah.
Interesting. It's funny. When I was I was stationed in Italy, and then as I was PCSing, I got to do whatever, 3 or 5 choices, and I wanted to be closer to home, so I think I picked Fort Drum and a few like kind of all in the Northeast. None selected, just Fort Campbell, Kentucky. I'm like, all right, well, that was a waste of time putting that thing. How did you feel getting your third choice? Did you feel defeated, or was it kind of a let me now do everything in my power to get into my first choice somehow, some way?
Yeah. I don't want to minimize the plight of people around the world who are in horrible circumstances, right? And I was like, in many ways had we didn't grow up rich. My dad was an immigrant, and with 7 kids, there's only so much, how you can only spread the money so many ways. But we lived in a fairly affluent suburban place. I had a great education. So in many ways, I'm very privileged, right? I'm a half white man as well, which helps in this society. I don't want to minimize the plight of others, but at that point in my life, that was the worst day of my life.
Yeah.
That was the worst day of my life. Like you've got, and by the way, also, I wasn't a big rah-rah Naval Academy, go Navy sort of guy. It's just not my personality. And I think, maybe we can talk about this more later, but I think that a lot of special operators, are like that or aren't rah-rah. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I own, like my oldest daughter, sorry, I'm going on a tangent. My
go
daughter,
ahead.
who's 19, was complaining to me not too long ago. She's like, Dad, she's like, you have like 0 Navy stuff. She's like, I want you, I want to she basically wanted to steal it from me.
Right.
It's not really me. But anyway, the reason I bring up they're 95% of the people you're going to school with at a service academy are super rah-rah. Like, I want haircuts and I want to polish shoes and I want to line up in parades and stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm exaggerating, of course.
Right.
But all these folks that I went to, have been doing this stuff for 3.5+ years, they're like, their dream came true, right?
Yep.
They're going to go fly. Like, they're going to go to nuclear power school and be on a submarine, which, I don't know why that would be anyone's dream, but
I've met a few weirdos. No offense to the people who have done it.
Yeah.
I found a few.
We thank you for your service,
exactly.
but,
Thank you for your service. One of them in particular, he's like 6'5", nuclear submarine. I'm like, why? I don't know if that was his first. I can't remember if I asked, but I'm like, how?
Crazy. Yeah.
Don't know why.
Yeah.
So
anyway, no. And so I remember that, and it's whatever. We find out what we got at the middle of the day or that afternoon, and around 6 p.m. you're a senior in college, like don't have much school. Like, what are you doing? You're going out, right?
Yep.
And so my buddies come by my room, and I'm just like, and I actually had one of my close friends retold this story back to me. And I don't know if he had ever done that before, but he told it through his eyes of what that was like, coming to my room to go out and get beers and celebrate what everyone got and blah, blah, blah. And he's like, dude, you were like dead to the world. You're just lying face down in your rack, like, and just
miserable.
Unconsolable.
Yeah.
Inconsolable? One of them. Yeah. Inconsolable.
It's all good. Yeah.
Yeah. So,
We're both college educated. We'll put up the right pronunciation here.
Inconsolable.
yeah. I like it.
No, I mean, I think you had added the preface or the caveat that grew up privileged, or in the sense of middle class, or in an affluent area, a house over your head. Because I sometimes think that too. Anytime where I'm complaining, I'm like, well, and I think there's a lot of benefit to being grateful for the things that you have and all that other stuff, and understanding there's plights, elsewhere in the world. At the same time, I have the same mindset of when, service members or veterans go, oh, you're complaining about finals, sounds tough. And it's, a picture of somebody deployed. It's like, well, yeah, but when you're in that situation, it still sucks. Like there's
Right.
no amount of reconciliation of other bad things in the world that will necessarily help you while you're in that moment.
Right.
You know, having been deployed and having done finals at school, like both are terrible. Like both can be really tough. Like when I'm up at 1 a.m. trying to finish an 8-page paper that's due in order to like graduate on time, like no amount of, well, like, oh yeah, let me think about when I was deployed. It's like, no, this like is still kind of like crunch time, tough, difficult. Yeah, sorry, just wanted to add that.
Yeah. No, well, you bring up a good point, which is something I've been thinking about a lot lately, which is it's so easy to minimize both our own struggle, but also that of other people. And often it's, you know, younger, privileged people complaining about something, whether it's on social media or someone, you know, that we know or around personally in real life. And, you know, it's so easy to just dismiss that. But I think it's really about the relative struggle for where someone is in their life. And it's not about comparing, you know, our damage or our plight. It's rather about empathizing with those people and where they are.
Yeah. I mean, even too, I think, at least in my opinion, it is healthy to kind of accept the emotions of the moment, right? I was struggling with this, you know, a few weeks ago where I was going down this kind of rabbit hole of like, well, I'd done all this other stuff and I'd gone through that. So why am I not handling this situation in a similar way? Or like, why am I so stressed? If I could have handled that stress, why can't I do it in this situation? And the reality is, it's like, well, it's a different part of your life. It's different stressors. And you now like the way you handle it there doesn't necessarily apply right now. And so you have to figure out new ways of handling it. And I think just purely dismissing kind of what's going on in the moment because of, well, I did this in the past is like, in my opinion, not healthy mentally.
Yeah, no, I love this track right now that you brought up, which is it is, well, let me demystify, right, for especially for non-veteran listeners, viewers. You know, SEALs are human too, right? And so it's very easy for all of us veterans who have you know, been in life and death circumstances, or, you know, whatever, drove a ship that was, you know, $500 million and like 800 people on board, or whatever, right? Whatever your journey is, everyone, whether you're enlisted or officer, has done amazing things. And you go in the real world, and it's easy to both kind of overestimate your abilities, be naive about what other people are going to trust you to do, be naive about what the character of other people is like, or be in denial about that. Be hard on yourself, you know, which I have too, where it's like, you know, damn it, I did this and this and this and this, yet I can't get traction in this area of life or business. Like, what is wrong with me? And there's been periods in my life where I was like really hard on myself about that. But obviously you're not going to make any progress if you're so hard on yourself. Yeah. You know?
So going back and, I mean, if you want peanuts, they do taste like regular old peanuts.
Planters,
so nothing,
Planters peanuts.
Nothing exciting there.
Okay.
What else do we got here?
I'll try 'em.
What is this? Hash brown potato. Oh, that actually might be interesting.
That sounds interesting.
Going back, so devastated Naval Academy. How do you get out of that rut?
There's not really a short answer. Maybe I just blacked out for a few weeks. I mean, I kind of don't even remember. I think it was just time. Yeah. I mean, I didn't really talk it out with anybody. I wasn't meditating then. I wasn't journaling then. And so, yeah, just kind of sucked it up. I mean, at least, unlike many things in life, like, I had to accept it. There was
Yeah.
no undoing it. There was no appeal.
Right.
There, like,
You're not
there's
writing a
no-
letter to the commander of the Navy
Right.
going, "Hey, can we get an appeal process on my position?"
Yeah, or a breakup, right? Like, oh well, like maybe, you know, in a few months they'll turn around, or you know, or I'll run into them, or like there's just like there's a finality to it where you just have to accept it.
Yeah.
And so I guess I went through my own however many stages of grief there are, I forget.
Right. 5 or something. I don't know.
But yeah, something. And
Post-production right there.
there we go. So one thing that was helpful is I did, the whole reason it was my third choice is because I knew you could lateral transfer.
Yeah.
So I wasn't ignorant about that.
Yep.
Because otherwise I probably would have flown or something, even though like I got airsick on my one of my midshipman flights on a S3. Is that the right plane? Doing like dive bombing practice runs over some island. Yeah, I threw up everywhere. And of course, your reward, you know, it's not, you show back up to the carrier after, and you feel just awful. You've thrown up everywhere.
Oh, yeah.
And no one's like cleaning that up for you.
Right.
You know, they're like, okay, here, like, here's a spray bottle, whatever. Like,
A couple
you got
paper
this midshipman.
towels.
Yeah. Like you threw it up, you clean it up.
Yeah.
So, where was I going with this? Oh yeah, I would have flown. So I knew I could lateral transfer, and then maybe 2 or 3 weeks after what they call service selection there, which was that process. There was a meeting that a couple of the SEAL officers who were stationed there, as instructors or company officers, whatever, they had a couple people come in to basically explain the lateral transfer process in detail, which we were ignorant of to that point. And there were a bunch of SEAL wannabes there, and you know, I mean, I guess also it was a little bit of a support group because there were one close friend also was in my same position, and then there were a couple other guys that I knew who were in the same position. So anyway, we're like sitting in this meeting, all looking at each other, you know, commiserating, and there's a few other people who want to do some other different things besides SEALs there, yeah, I was just in full taking notes mode, you know, like you want to do this, you want to do this, you want to do this, like in order to get your package for lateral transfer, you know, in the best possible position and timing of when you show up to your ship. Like you want to show up to, well, okay, because this is a veteran thing, I'll give some details. It's like, you want to show up to your ship right away, right before it's going to deploy, because you get your warfare pin on deployment usually, right? So someone who shows up at the beginning of the training cycle, you're going to spend, I don't know, whatever the training cycle is, 18 months or whatever it is, just always, you know, being without that, not having a lot of experience practically doing ship stuff. You'll have a lot of experience leading people in port, but yeah. So anyway, you show up there and you'll get your pin, and you also want to show up to an amphibious ship, an amphib, as opposed to what all the real ship people in the Navy want to do. All the real ship officers want to go to things with missiles and guns.
Right.
Whereas, you know, amphibs are pretty,
you're like, I want the thing that like gets off the boat as fast as possible.
Yeah, amphibs are pretty defenseless. They rely on other ships. They're, you know, and also they're cool though. It's like brown water Navy sort of stuff. Yeah. So and also the culture is more lax, which was more my style. So so anyway, I did that, and then got my pin pretty quickly. We did a deployment to Southeast Asia, which was amazing. I totally lucked out there. I don't know if I knew that ahead of time when I chose my ship, because it's kind of a similar process when you do your ship selection. And but anyway, I showed up literally a week before deployment. Brand new officer, a week before. Kind of, I think I was just
barely got all your gear ready to go. Like, I mean, they're just like, hey, like you're on your way.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. Yeah, and yeah, it was kind of a fun deployment, and then lucked out a little bit later with the lateral transfer.
How long did that take?
Well, I couldn't apply until I got my pin. So it was we deployed, which was 6 months, and then got back, and it was 9/11. So a week after we got back, or days, 9/11 happened. And also, I got a jaywalking ticket on 9/11.
Terrible. They've just decriminalized it. So I wonder if you can get that expunged on your record. That misdemeanor, jaywalking. Go to the courts and be like, listen, we need this. We need this taken off.
Yeah.
I want to talk about that a little bit, if you don't mind. You had joined. Yes. Pros and cons. Are you for or against jaywalking? I feel like it's a New York.
This is the third rail of politics.
Exactly.
Yeah, I don't know.
We talk about the contentious topics here. You had gone into the Naval Academy with no real kind of active conflicts. If I'm remembering right, Somalia was early 90s. You had the Gulf War. Dates right here. Yeah. I'm going to forget off the top of my head. Obviously, there is a slight difference between signing up during kind of active wartime or active conflict. How did 9/11 affect you? Did that provide extra motivation to go the Buds route, or what was going through your mind being in New York, 9/11 happens, being within the Navy, and now this sudden shift with what the role of the U.S. military is geopolitically?
Yeah. Not that it's a big deal, but I was in San Diego, actually.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Jaywalking in San Diego, so probably still illegal there.
Yeah, it probably is. For me, I think, I go against the grain a lot. I'm a little bit of a contrarian, or a lot, some people might say. I like to say I got into AI before it was cool. Mm-hmm. In a way, I got in the SEAL teams before it was cool. Because those are things that I was just interested in and wanted to do. So 9/11. I don't know that it strengthened my desire to go to Buds or to go that route much. And at least for, there's some parts of the military where, folks arrive for many different reasons.
Yeah.
And often that reason is not, hey, I want to lead men and women in combat. Right. Pretty much no one shows up to Buds, with kind of like, hey, I just came here for, the GI Bill.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. That'd be the toughest route in the military, to be like, I just need, some college paid for. Which, exactly. I mean, there are plenty of people who join for economic reasons, totally fine. Usually not going the SF route, though.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
How was Buds training for you? Was it everything that was in your mind? Or midway through, are you going, crap, what did I sign up for? I made a big mistake. How did you process it? Finally, also kind of delayed, but now achieving your dream of being able to attend.
Yeah, I mean, for an officer, you're lucky to be there, mm-hmm. right? It's not like every officer can just show up to Buds, and same for enlisted, but it's way easier to get there as enlisted because there's just like a checklist of things you need to do, right, for your ASVAB, PT test, a couple other things. Whereas obviously all the medical stuff. Whereas for an officer, there's a board, there's interviews, there's recommendations, there's all sorts of stuff, and that board meets, whatever, once or twice a year. And if they don't approve your transfer on that first try, it's very unlikely you're going to get it on the second try, and you have to wait another whatever year, and then you're in another job, and maybe that captain doesn't let you leave, and like all sorts of stuff can happen. So you're lucky to even be there. I had the benefit of knowing a lot about what it was going to be like before I got there, and I don't think there are many people who show up. I mean, especially today, there's so much information out there, but even back then, I don't think many people are showing up not really knowing much about what they're getting into.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's going to be hard, but you can't imagine how hard it is until the moment. But I had the benefit of some classmates from the academy who had gone through already because they got it on their first try, and talking with the SEAL officers at the academy when I was a midshipman, books, and there was this Discovery Channel series that had some of my academy classmates in it.
Oh, really?
I can't remember what it was called.
Like,
the
I think I remember seeing it too, like
was
discovering
so
bud or like surviving buds or something like that.
I can't remember, but it was so well produced. Maybe not as well produced as this podcast, but
Thanks to the producer.
And I think it, without giving away all, I guess, the secret sauce of buds and the mindset of people and the instructors, like to me it's the most authentic portrayal of what that training is like. And the narrator was phenomenal. She, like, I don't think they got Sigourney Weaver, but it was like she was that good.
Yeah.
And just the way they built the drama and just the way you just get beaten down every day.
It's fascinating. I mean, I think they've done it a few times now, or at least back in the mid 2010 or whatever, 2009. When I was thinking about joining, I'd watched a lot of those like National Geographic or Discovery documentaries of going through different things, and it's always fascinating to see kind of how they went through. Jumping into it, we'll heat these things up.
Okay.
Don't worry, there's no flames or anything like that, so it's nothing will catch on fire. Okay, so where are we in the story? We are
Buds. You had asked me how it was for me.
Yes. Oh, and so with those documentaries, you had watched them. You said they were fairly accurate. Was there anything that they did wrong or represented incorrectly?
I would say that well, there's a few things that they can't possibly capture. I mean, one is you as one instructor later that I had for advanced training described it like you're just getting kicked in the balls every day, all day for 6 months, and it's actually more than 6 months because there's a little grouping up time before you start first phase, and so you can't capture that right effectively on video. The other is the camaraderie is hard to represent, and then one other thing is that I just thought about right now. I never really thought about is the I think the leadership challenges that you have and pressures, especially as an officer. Like they show a little bit of that in like Discovery Channel 1 and some others, but I was, and the same is true for the guys who are on the more senior side of enlisted. They're not technically like what the Navy would call senior enlisted in quotes, but they are, they're E5s, E4s, and there's a lot of leadership challenges throughout Buds because the instructors are charged with your training, but you're like a military unit that's operating every day on its own, right? Policing each other up, staying organized. Because if you're not effective as a class, you as a class will have it much harder.
Right.
Yeah.
Was your class much harder, or was there that cohesion?
We were, I mean, I don't know, not to pat ourselves in the back that much, but my LPO and myself and the officers and the other, again, more senior enlisted guys who were running the class, I think we did a great job. Like instructors would come and tell us.
There we go.
Later. Yeah. Not in each phase.
Not in they're smoking
phase,
you, and they're like, but actually, you guys are doing much better than the alternative.
Ones from previous, or after we graduated, and we could tell they didn't have to tell us. Yeah. It's not like we got that much compliments. That's not how it works in Buds. But we could compare, right? Like there were stories of this class that was 1 or 2 ahead of us, and in dive phase, like the trail of blood on the pavement from them being on their hands and knees with all their dive gear on.
Yeah.
It's like the phrase is jock up, which means put your gear on, but like you jock up is not a fun experience when you're at Buds in dive phase. You know, we didn't really experience anything to that.
Right.
It all sucks. It all sucks. But
yeah,
there weren't as many of those beatdown sessions.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah.
Not that I would ever compare regular Army AIT to Buds, but I will. But I won't. Cut that out. Bring it back in.
Yeah.
In AIT, we had, a very intense AIT instructor.
Advanced infantry training, right?
No.
What is AIT again?
Oh, God. Put it up on the screen. Advanced individual training.
Okay.
I think is what it's called. Yeah. So I was a forward observer, so and then became JFO qualified. And our AIT instructor would consistently take away, reinstate, and then take away our weekend pass. We didn't get a single weekend pass in AIT because it would just be like on a Friday, somebody got like orange juice at the DFAC rather than water. And he was like, that's it. Like weekends canceled, and we get smoked. We got recalled like one Saturday and then just spent the entire night going from PT to normal uniform to dress blues to back to and it built character, I guess. I learned something from it. Not sure what, but
that just sounds annoying. You know what I mean? Like
exactly. And at a certain point, and I said this in one of the other podcasts, is the Army became significantly easier for me when I realized that you can think about it as a game. And so in those situations, there's kind of two ways to look at it. It can be like, poor me, or like, this sucks, like, going back in uniform. But I'm kind of like, if this was a sitcom, this would be like, there would be a laugh track going on right now. Like people, like adult, I mean, granted, 18, 19-year-olds, young adults, just switching between 3 uniforms for hours on end. There's something funny about that.
Right.
And so if you can kind of play that laugh track in your head, I don't know if this is completely out in left field, but if you can kind of just say like, this is a game that we're playing, and we're playing the game of how many times can you switch between uniforms? Yeah, you can have fun with it.
Yeah. I can relate a little bit. There's definitely throughout Buds and every like there are many things post Buds that suck really bad in the SEAL teams. I mean the whole military, right? But you know, most guys who served in the SEAL teams will tell you that the coldest they've ever been was not in Buds. It was at another point in time in their service, or you know, and extend it to other aspects of hurt as well. But there is like a gallows humor throughout Buds.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know that I kind of conceptualized it the same way you did. I think of more of like the Naval Academy when I think of those sort of reindeer games, as I call them.
Right.
You know,
after completing Buds, getting to your kind of first unit, how was the rest of your time in the service, and what ultimately influenced you to separate and go back into the civilian world, quote unquote?
Yeah. It was great. It was a real true honor and privilege, and was incredibly fun and formative to serve in the SEAL teams. We surged all well, not all, but the SEAL teams went through a surge period. I think it was during the regular surge, but our surge was for the purpose of protecting the Iraqi political leadership, which I don't know if I ever heard him say it, but apparently it was George W. Bush's top strategic priority at the time. And it was interesting because I don't know if ever before that or since then have so many SEAL teams, not entire SEAL teams, but so many SEAL teams been in the same place,
right,
doing the same job at the same time. but that's what we were doing. We were in the green zone, and I was charged with being the representative to one of the Iraqi vice presidents. They have two. They have a backup at all times, I guess. And so
Backup to the backup.
yeah. So that's right. I jest. No one's the backup. They're both extremely valued and important.
Yeah. Disclaimer right here. Well,
that's right. Yeah. That's right. And I'll spare you the details, but it was interesting because he did not want a heavy protective detail in the beginning until there was an attack, and he was okay. I don't think any of his crew got hurt, but it was a wake up call for him. But
I was gonna say, it's like I don't need anything, and then suddenly something happens. Like actually, never mind.
But until that wake up call, all the guys that I had done the workup, the training cycle with, my brothers, like they were all not even on the same base as me. Like they weren't even forget FOB. They weren't even on the green zone. They were over at BIAP doing real SEAL missions. While I was, more of a desk jockey, working, wearing civilian clothes, working with the vice president and his people to just, coordinate security and things like that. So it was interesting being kind of an army of one.
Yeah.
Driving around in my up armored Toyota Land Cruiser,
just on the
brand new around the green zone.
Yeah.
It was very weird. That was my first deployment.
Coming out of that, did you feel like at any point this was going to be a long, 20-year career? Or after that kind of first deployment, did you start, maybe I'm getting my timeline kind of wrong here, but you're probably approaching the end of your first contract. Had that deployment influenced your decision to kind of get out, or what was going through your mind?
Well, it didn't. That deployment really didn't influence me negatively or positively, because I knew I wanted to be at least what at that time was called a platoon commander. So it'd be like an Army company commander equivalent sort of job. And that platoon commander role, at least back then, was like the job that, every officer, regardless of how long they served, looked back on fondly, and was that checkbox of like, hey, I did a good job there and I can do other stuff. And so, so I knew I wanted to get to that stage. And so, and I had a good time on that first deployment. I did end up going on, some normal SEAL missions with the guys, and we got back together and we were on the same base. I wasn't an army of one anymore, which was great. But 2007, we were working for a joint task force, and that was my platoon commander job, where I actually also, due to a variety of circumstances and the trust that my command, officer above me, the trust that he had in me and one of my peers, where I, got to be essentially a troop commander, ground force commander on a ton of our ops in 2007. So we can talk about that, but to answer your question about why I got out, I had considered a career early on, and that was one of the motivating factors to go to the academy, was like, hey, if I'm going to do this as a career, I want the foundation of the education and the leadership training, but I also want the network and the stamp and some of those. Not that I'm a political guy, but I'm also not like completely naive. Like those things matter, right? And maybe they don't anymore. But what did I know? I was never served, and I didn't have any family who served. So, but my now ex-wife and I had our first kid 2 months before my first deployment. And, so she was 3 or in 2008. And, also knew that I wanted to do other things in life. Even though SEAL teams were amazing, I knew I wanted to do other things. And then officers, like operationally, you have a short shelf life.
Yeah.
Right. So, you know, like if you want to do like SEAL things and you want to do it for a very long time, then you should go the enlisted route.
Yeah.
Like, because you can do that. You can do it forever. Kind of.
Yeah. I mean,
kind of. Yeah.
You bring up a lot of things. One, I mean, as 18, you know, going into the Naval Academy, it sounds like even if maybe you weren't fully aware of it, there's that insurance policy, right? Of even if I don't, you know, maybe I do 20 years, maybe I don't, or maybe I do that. That insurance policy of the Naval Academy, the network that it brings, the education and all that, helps you no matter which route that you go. And I think that's really pivotal for a lot of individuals out there. It's not everyone knows what they want to do 10 to 20 years from now. I sure don't. But there are certain things that you can do, even if it's not your main driving factor, to be like, if things go wrong or if this happens, I have this fallback or I have this safety net to kind of protect me. I think the second thing was the kind of officer versus enlisted. I know in the Army, you know, a lot of rotary wing pilots will decommission and go the warrant route because after they hit captain, they're kind of out of the pilot role, and now they're just, you know, desk people, you know, pushing paper, and they're like, I joined to fly helicopters. That's what I want to do. Right. So they'll take the hit and just go warrant to like, continue flying.
Totally. Yeah. I would say I have not been great at the safety net thing. I mean, I've managed to accumulate some credentials that have definitely helped me.
Yeah.
And provided, you know, what could be a safety net. But at least for me, that's not generally my mindset.
Right.
Right. So, probably to my detriment, but I almost left the academy after my second year.
Yeah.
Because, I don't know if this makes sense, but it's what I've said since those days, which is just like, it's not really hard. It just sucks real bad.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of a lot of life is not necessarily hard. It just sucks. Like,
yeah. And I want hard.
Yeah.
Right. Like that's even in business. Right. And I'm probably fast forwarding because we're on a chronological timeline here. But, for me, it's easier if it's hard.
I want to respectfully push back because you said you don't establish a safety net, which maybe you don't, but at least looking at your LinkedIn or looking at your background, right, doing a little snooping. I mean, Naval Academy, BUDS, you know, you even, you know, did the surface warfare to be able to kind of get into BUDS if your first choice doesn't work out. Then I believe Morgan Stanley and other great
Barclays Capital.
Barclays Capital.
Who's counting?
Fix that. It does seem like at least you're very good at making the right choice. And in the sense of if this goes wrong, you've got this, and then this will be able to set you up for the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. So I kind of see that as an insurance or a safety net or insurance net. But maybe I'm just looking at it differently, and obviously I'm a third-party observer.
Yeah, I think that is a reasonable interpretation one could have by, you know, stalking me on LinkedIn. But the reality, I think I do take decisions seriously. I like treating decisions as a science, and it's as a science, and that is one of the things that I'm, you know, kind of building some intellectual property around and trying to help people with in my coaching practice and other stuff. But I think you're reading too much into it.
That's
right?
fair.
Which is, I have a very risk-seeking mindset that could be an outlier, and I don't want to like. Everyone wants to make themselves an outlier, right? Like everyone's neurodivergent now, and so like, you know, or like whatever. It's like it's fun to put a label on yourself and be like, no, like I'm really different, and special. Whereas like my approach to looking at humanity is like, hey, no one's better, no one's worse. Like we're mostly the same, overwhelmingly. But you know, like surface warfare was a risk. There are plenty of people who tell me, or who chose a different path. They're like, okay, I didn't get this. I'm going to go fly because it's easy. And well, it's not easy, but or I'm going to do this job because it's easy and it doesn't suck like surface warfare does. Like surface warfare sucks. Even people who serve aboard a ship, they will admit it sucks. Like it's like Office Space, the old movie, but on a gray thing that smells and you're locked in. And there were some bright moments. I learned a lot. I loved the people, especially enlisted folks that I worked with, and some good officer friends. But that was a huge risk, right? Like I could have, and again, no offense to people in that community, but for me, if my service if I hadn't gotten the lat transfer and all I had done was serve aboard ship, I hate to say it, but like I would have really thought that, hey, 5 to maybe 9 years of my life was a complete waste.
Right. Yeah.
But I took that risk because like that's what I really wanted to do, right? I went to, and I didn't really look at the Naval Academy as a safety net. It was just a means to an end, right? I wasn't really thinking about the private sector or anything like that. The other thing is Wall Street was like, I didn't go the banking route. I didn't go the consulting route, even though on paper those would have been the wise things to do, right? Because those set you up for anything. I went to trading because I wanted to do that, and to me that was the most intellectually challenging thing, the most adrenaline thing. There's some other examples there. So I think perhaps I've just been able to keep making aggressive decisions that take advantage of that risk-seeking mentality. And that's created a little bit of a snowball of credibility and skills that I can apply. But there are much better ways to create a safety net than what I've done.
I'd love to talk a little bit about the transition, but I think our MRE should be warm enough.
I think they're done. I think
to give it a try.
Let's do it.
I've got. Oh, did mine even? Oh, mine didn't even activate. So that's always fun. Love that.
Bummer.
Well, talking about the struggles of
use
life,
mine,
and no. Okay. We're gonna just accept fate here and deal with it. I'm gonna need this. But
used to be a bottom to these boxes. Or something.
All right. I think which one did I even heat up? The maple. Yeah. Oh, that's cold. Yeah. A little warm. Anyways, so as we eat this, you're transitioning. How you talked a little bit about why you went into trading, but how did you do it? Did you get out and immediately get that job? What were the steps that you took in order to be able to take that risk?
So I showed up at the Naval Academy, I showed up at Harvard Business School, and within days, the financial crisis happened. So it is both the best time and the worst time to be in business school. You don't have to worry about losing a job because you already don't have a job. And you get to study kind of, with some of the brightest minds in the world in business, especially the study of business. You get to kind of hear their thoughts in real time about why, solutions, all that stuff. So, by the way, I have a beard, so I'm gonna need a napkin. That's
right. Well, you got some good old.
I think we got some
paper towel. Oh, we got
there's
some.
There's a wet nap in there. I think we're good.
Feel free to toss it too. Yeah,
we're fine.
Hopefully, it doesn't all boom.
No. Okay. Cool. Yeah, I'll keep that on standby. Thank you. Could we just ask for anything and will it just show?
It will just throw.
Yeah,
come out. Yeah.
Be
we'll do some like post production, like flames coming out on the.
I love it.
Can't afford that, but
so that was cool. I had thought about a variety of things. I really had wanted to do something entrepreneurial. Although I had thought about trading, and and related professions in finance, not banking. It wasn't going to be for me, because I'd just done too much to have people who potentially were even younger than me, like significantly younger than me, you know, yelling at me because I got a formula wrong in an Excel, or just preparing slides for a client, you know, at like all hours of the night. I was just like, I'm not doing that. Like I've got a family, and I've done things that are way more important, and tougher than this. So anyway, trading was interesting, and all the entrepreneurial avenues really, they dried up hardcore in the financial crisis. But interestingly, like consulting and finance were still hiring, at least at the big institutions.
Right.
So I got an internship at Barclays Capital. Really hit it off with the folks that I met there, veterans and non-veterans alike. And to get into that world, or really any world, I think great advice is study up, be curious, be friendly, right? Like actively friendly, not like passively waiting for people to be friendly. Like, you know, reach out to people, network, and the ultimate hack is you have to ask great questions, because if you ask great questions, you get great learnings.
Yeah.
And you make people who are experienced in the industry, you make them think, and that is going to reflect well on you. They're going to remember you. And so I think that's in large part how I got the internship. That's how I got a full-time offer, and ended up trading for about 18 months there.
How did you learn those lessons? Was that through the military, an advisor? How did you kind of come to some of those conclusions? Or just life?
I think I lucked into that, because I'm just a curious person, and I like to learn, and I wanted to really understand how that business worked, how the function of trading, you know, worked. The other thing is, when you're, at least in that community, and we're probably getting overly tactical about a certain niche here, but when you're sitting next to a trader, sometimes an unfriendly one, a lot of times, or, you know, or they're focused, right? You're sitting next to them for like an hour, or even half an hour, right? You got to say something.
Yeah.
So like, how are you going to make conversation, right? Like, you're not going to talk about personal stuff. You don't know them, and that would be irrelevant anyway. So, you know, you make up questions to ask them on the fly, or ask them to explain stuff. And that's kind of how that works.
Then 18 months there.
Yeah.
Decided to move. Something happened.
Take a.
Oh yeah, you feel free to shift it. Yeah. I also want to get your thoughts on. So first bite.
It'd be easier if I was left-handed. First bite's pretty good. Not gonna lie.
Yeah, this one's. If you want to try it, it's not too bad. Feel free to say no. But this is a potato hash, and that's the maple.
I am good.
Okay.
There's the chicken burrito here bowl if you want. It's not bad.
1 out of 10. Rating. One being bad, 2.
Yeah. I would say it's like in the world of food. I mean, I don't know. It might be like a 4 or a 5.
Okay. World of MREs.
World of MREs, I would give it probably an 8 or so.
Wow. Okay. We've been getting a lot of 7.5s, all that. I want to start to get like a running tally of what the average MRE is being rated at this point. Yeah. Completely agree, though. World of food, it'll get you by. I mean, it's sustenance. You know, totally 3 or 4.
Yeah.
World of MREs significantly improved from at least when I was in it. I can imagine, from when you were in some significant improvement.
This is pretty good. I think the chicken burrito would actually be good. It'd be okay cold.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be terrible.
Yeah.
Especially if you had some hot sauce.
Exactly. You know. These were cold, not too bad. I have noticed after recordings, the taste lingers for like a couple hours, which is like, as you're trying to go to sleep.
You could have told me that before.
Yeah. Well, we don't want to scare away our guests. We're already saying you got to eat an MRE, and then it's right. So like a few hours from now, if you don't brush your teeth, you'll be like, all right, I definitely ate an MRE.
Noted.
Don't know what they're putting in to the MREs for that to happen, but neither here nor there. 18-month mark. you decide to shift, move. What happens?
Well, I enjoyed the trading desk a lot. I really liked the people there. It was, like the SEAL teams, big personalities, very focused, extremely smart. And we had to, I was at Barclays Capital, I was trading power, meaning it's like power trading. And when I first saw that on my list, I'm like, what is power trading? Like, does that mean trading powerfully? It's just like,
Right, really strong. Yeah.
Like, yeah.
Like the Andre, what's his name? Doesn't matter. He's like on Wall Street. He's doing the bit where it's like, buy, sell.
Copy that. You're fired. You're hired. You're fired. Don't talk to me about the SEC. Well, get him on the phone. I'm going to go back in that office and rip your heart out like I'm Kano from Mortal Kombat.
Right. So, but it's electricity, and you have to trade natural gas when you trade electricity because it's the base of our power system besides coal. And so I remember a lot of late nights there building things for the desk, although I actually enjoyed, learning to code and, being essentially an engineer and a product manager, like a software engineer on the desk to build tools that would help us trade better, make my work more efficient or more accurate. But I do remember there were times like reading about power plants that and climate credits and carbon credits, like, which just, I have no interest still, but even that, especially that, I had no interest in any of that, honestly. Like I liked the job and the people, and I got an offer from this desk. Like, it's not like Wall Street firms are, giving you like 5 offers from 5 different desks. Yeah. Like, you get one, you can flirt around with other desks and you have a rotation and things, but it's kind of take it or leave it. I could have gone to try and shop at other firms, but eventually I took it. But I remember Wall Street trading floor is just like you picture. It's a football field size floor of a building with just desks and desks and rows and desks. And ours was right near the windows. And this is the old Lehman building in Times Square, not too far away from where we are, right here. And because Barclays Capital bought Lehman, for people who don't remember or don't know or don't care. So I remember we're along the windows, and I'm looking above my 4 monitors, and every now and then the window washers would be out there, which is just, I mean, if you haven't experienced that in like a high-rise city building, it's just interesting, right? I mean, these guys are, and there's probably some women doing it too, but mostly guys, up there,
dangling hundreds of feet.
Just dangling up there, and that is their job all day, every day, right? And looking at the window washer one day above my screens, and it happened to be a nice day, but just like, I'd rather be out there washing windows than in here right now. I felt like I was wasting my life.
Very similar experience with equity research. It was just an internship, but it was one of those things where I love research. So I'm kind of the opposite. I love learning about companies. We were doing an energy thing, and one of the companies was from India, and I learned about like property rights in India and how like there are times where it's like, this company owns this land, and then somebody comes from somewhere else is like, actually, I have this piece of paper that says I own the land. And so property rights are very kind of loosey-goosey. And I found that immensely fascinating. I hated the job, though. Hated the actual operations of it, and realized this was not going to be for me.
Well, if I do think that part of it was the underlying asset class that I was doing. Like it was very esoteric. So, pricing options is hard enough, like equity options. But if you are doing commodities, it's more dubious. And then mathematically speaking, and then if you are doing what are called spread options, which is way beyond the scope of this podcast, but
we're going into a full master class now.
It is a very is very complex, and there's no right answer for what the price is, but there are ways to price them, and we had to, because you got to make a bid or an ask on a deal, on a transaction. So it was very, that stuff I really loved, super challenging intellectually, but the underlying asset class I just wasn't interested in, right? If I was studying companies, if I had been in equities, right, or debt, I think I would have been more interested on a day-to-day basis doing the studying, but studying power plants and whatever, the Massachusetts legislature might pass this bill and it'll impact the power grid this way, and it's just like, oh my God, it's just like the most boring stuff in the world.
How was it balancing all of that while also having a family? I fortunate is not the right word to use, but one of the things that made my transition a lot easier was I was single, no kids, no real responsibility besides what does Holden Lindblom want to do with his life. You had mentioned earlier not really wanting to do IB because he didn't want to deal with, somebody yelling at you or staying late, but it does sound like you were staying quite late. There did seem to be kind of high emotions on the trading floor, like a lot of kind of energy. On top of that, transitioning out, family, kids, etc. Did that influence? How did you balance it? How did you, deal with that?
Yeah. So, I mean, a couple clarifications. Not that it matters that much, but the emotions on the trading floor, it's not like it was negative emotions. It was just the excitement of playing this video game, of trying to make money, or trying not to lose money, and the highs and lows of that. But honestly, that wasn't really stressful to me.
Okay.
Right? Like, the trading can be an extremely stressful profession. But similar to how people who show up at Buds aren't people who came for the GI Bill, right? People who show up to a Wall Street trading floor are just, they've already self-selected. They're not the people who are going to get stressed out in really negative ways by this stuff. And so and really there were some late nights, but it was a lot self-directed, right? It wasn't like, oh, I got to wait for, this partner, the consulting partner or the banking partner to come back from their dinner at per se, and then tell me what I need to send to the client, at 11 p.m. Right. And it needs to be ready by 5 a.m. the next day. Yeah. That is just fundamentally not healthy for people. And I think there's an element of just real immense ego and condescension that I saw a little bit from afar. That world meaning banking specifically, but also consulting, management consulting at the big firms. That I fundamentally object to, especially for veterans. F those guys and women. They have no idea what you've been through and how friggin' awesome you are.
Right.
And it might be a means to an end. Maybe it creates that safety net. Maybe your dream is to get into private equity or whatever, and or make partner one day, or you can be the person bossing people around and go on to client dinners all the time on the company's dime. But I don't know. There's so many things you can do out there, and so many places that you can, own, control what you do, pursue new things, or be with people who treat you well and know what you're capable of.
Right.
That maybe my ego is just too big, which may be a problem, but I couldn't, I did not want to deal with that. Sorry, I went on a huge tangent.
No, I appreciate it. I think there's two ways, right? I mean, there's knowing your worth. There's not putting up with something, for the sake of just having to put up with it. I think on the other hand, what I sometimes approach it as, or what I usually think is, to one level, the military does a great job at setting you up for success. On another level, whenever you go into a new industry or new job, there is a certain level of having to, go through the ringer or kind of like pay your dues. Not that that's always the answer, but my fiance moved from consulting to private equity. And for her, she had to go from, associate back down to analyst. And to, some regard, that's like, like I'm going down a peg. Likewise, I mean, when I went from Army and I did the, equity research, I was just like intern analyst.
Sure.
I would never expect to come in immediately at a VP level or an associate level, right? And there's this level of like, I had done and kind of gone through these crappy things in the military that have set me up. At the same time, I kind of have to do that again in order to be able to achieve this and this and this. I do think it is a little different, though, also between enlisted and officer. You had the Naval Academy. You had kind of more time in kind of quote unquote senior leadership positions. But at least on the enlisted side, I felt like, yes, I've got this, but because it doesn't kind of necessarily directly translate, I do have to kind of restart, and that's okay in my situation.
Yeah, I mean, the answer is not to be entitled, right? That's not a great attitude to have. But there's another element of how the real world works outside of the military. Mm-hmm. The military, yeah, sure. Is it political in parts? Yes, especially at the general officer, flag officer ranks, or as you approach there. But it's like as close to a meritocracy as you're gonna get, and the real world just is not like that. We could show up as SEALs to a random Army base or Marine base, not know anybody, and just walk into the operations center, and because we are wearing very similar uniforms and are serving the same mission, like those people are going to help me, like despite our long haircuts and out of regs, crazy mustache or like whatever, and uniform weapons that are modified and just like a little bit of, probably cowboy swagger, like, and like they're in their perfectly starched camis and, looking at us like, who the hell are you guys coming in here? But at the same time, like they're going to go out of their way to help us. We're going to go out of our way to help them. Like, and there's that commonality of purpose, like, where you can trust people, where they're not afraid all the time, where they're not selfish. And most people in the world like are afraid and just out for themselves.
Right.
And like, you can be in denial or you can accept that and move on. I think there's something else you said there about starting, at the bottom pegs. And that gets at something I think about a lot, which is, it's all about trust. And everyone's going to nod their head at that. Trust in teams, all sorts of stuff is important, but it's, the trust around how you climb the ladder and management layers. And it's essentially, I think that there's a difference between functional expertise and the general leadership traits. And the real difference maker in business and life are the general leadership traits that every veteran has.
Yeah.
The functional stuff, everyone who's in an industry is completely invested in the idea that their function is difficult. But I've changed industries many times. And, unless you're going to practice medicine or something, like most jobs, the function is actually not that hard to learn.
Yeah.
Right? You can learn most of what you need to learn in like 6 months.
I agree with you 100%. I had this conversation the other day, not on the podcast, just elsewhere.
Yep.
Whenever somebody goes, how can you do this? You haven't been in the job for 5-10 years.
Right.
It doesn't infuriate me, but I think it misses the point. To some extent, yes, being at a job in 10 years builds experience, confidence, all that stuff. But the core competencies of how to do the job can be picked up relatively quickly. 6 months is usually enough for you to be good enough to be able to execute on the things that you need to execute on.
Yep.
Granted, there's like the Dunning-Kruger effect or whatever, where
Sure.
it's like you don't know anything, then you think you're an expert, and then you realize you don't know anything.
Sure.
Chart up here.
Yeah.
But by and large, barring a couple things here and there, you can figure it out if you are motivated to learn, have the resources, and take the time.
Yep.
6 months, you may not be an expert, but like good enough.
Yeah, you can be pretty darn good, right? And I think that because of the way we organize companies, which, you know, society and companies, when you're young, and even a lot of adults, take for granted like the idea that, hey, like this is the only way we could have organized. But it's actually not, right?
Yeah.
Companies could be organized in so many different ways. We just landed on something that is honestly pretty rooted in the military for historic reasons. But there are other ways you could organize where functional expertise and management could be dissociated and split. And so you end up with a situation where someone can learn most of what they need to learn in 6 months with some marginal differences, right? But because of the layers and because, you know, people need to move on or die or you need to grow in order to get promoted, you're just stuck there in this place where you're actually capable of a lot more, but there's nowhere you can move, right? And there's still that kind of condescension in the hierarchy in a lot of places, not everywhere, that is unfortunate because I think we don't tap into the skills and abilities and creativity of people enough because of that reason.
There's so many things I want to talk about, but I also want to be respectful of your time and the amount of time that we have in this studio.
Yeah.
What are you doing now? We're going to like kind of fast forward. I'd love
Yeah.
to have you on because this could be 3 hours. What are you doing now? How did you get there? And really, what's the mission driving Andrew? Because
Yeah.
I think one of the things that service members kind of need to learn when they transition out is there needs to be this new mission, right? Or at least for me, I find it beneficial.
Yeah.
Going from an organization that is so mission driven and having this esprit de corps,
Right.
big star or direction forward,
Yeah.
getting out, you kind of have to establish that yourself because nobody's really going to tell you. So how did that impact you? And
Yeah.
what are you doing now to have that mission?
Yeah, this could definitely be 3 hours. I think we could even, it could be a weekly show hypothetically because there's so many different threads.
There's no other podcast. We can just keep going.
We're just so. I see some veterans and they very easily just do what actually many veterans before them have done, or it's like where they don't really care about the mission, right? Like, you know, whatever, like their dad went to a service academy and then he went to banking and then he did this and that's what I'm going to do, right? Or just taking very prosaic paths where it's just, I'm going to raise a family, I'm going to make a decent income. You know, maybe I'll go to the Beltway around DC where I live and, you know, be a defense contractor, right? And which can be, there's so many things that tilt the scale in your favor going that route where, like, you know, it's like a lot of people are like, you'd be crazy not to do X or Y or Z because you get paid this and it's security and blah, blah, blah. Like some vets, they do that and they don't even question it. Like, and I'm happy for them. Whereas I think there's a lot of other vets, like it sounds like you and me, where that, you know, that lack of mission, that lack of commonality of purpose, you know, is hard.
Yeah.
It's easy to actually forget that when you get out. It's like, yeah, like I'm a human. There's plenty of other things I want to do, blah, blah, blah. You know, but it took a while for me. It was a little wake up call.
I learned that the hard way. When I got out, I thought I wanted to do investment banking specifically because it was like, well, everyone seems to be doing that. That seems to be the path. It's got the money. It's got that.
Yeah.
And although I didn't do IB, the equity research opened my eyes of like, this is just miserable and there's no reason to do this. And the thing you said earlier, there's this YouTube creator called Will Shorter. Will Shorter. I'm mispronouncing his last name, but there's a letter from his grandfather when his grandfather served in the Korean War, and it's a letter to his grandmother about, and then he brings up quote unquote Joe Saver is the character, about how he's always saving for the next thing. He's not going to try hard in school because he knows that he's going to enlist.
Yeah.
And then he's not going to try hard in the enlistment because he's just waiting to get out. And then he gets out and he's saving his energy, and then suddenly gets to the end of his life and he's saved his entire life without actually kind of putting the hard work in. And now it's like it's too late. And that video, I mean, a lot of things have impacted me, but I watch that video from time to time because I think it's such an important lesson. I mean, like,
Yeah.
there's just like, even if you're in a situation where like, I don't necessarily want to do this, or I'm not necessarily in my ideal thing, it's just like, yeah, just tackle it at 110% and then see what happens. Like, figure it out. When I got out of the Army, I was Abercrombie and Fitch, floor person. Like, I was folding clothes. Somebody asked me to try on some t-shirt where they're like, you kind of look like the same size as my son. Can you put this on to see so I can see what it looks like? I'm like, yeah, sure. Like, let's do it. And like, and I was like, yeah, is my life calling Abercrombie and Fitch? No offense to them, but like no, but I'm there. I'm getting paid. Like, might as well have fun with it. Might as well do it. So anyways, digression aside. So what are you doing now?
So I am, sorry. One little tidbit. I was doing a lot of AI and data and technology stuff at Amazon, venture-backed startups, and things like that. This year, I've pivoted to going to what has been a passion of mine and a lot of veterans is leadership, and trying to help companies and executives incorporate all the lessons that we learned in the military, as well as the things that I picked up along the way and in business. And so I do public speaking, I do executive coaching for founders and senior level executives in great companies, and leadership training and that kind of stuff. So, yeah.
How long have you been doing it for? And what's the future look like? I always hate the question, where do you see yourself in 10 years? But I mean, what is the North Star? Is it just, I want to help, or kind of where do you see the path going?
Yeah, I am a person who I need to emit thoughts and ideas into the world. That's just the way that I'm built. I probably, if I didn't grow up in a half Indian household, and my dad had been Indian and my mom was almost thought about becoming a nun, very Irish Catholic. So like it was a lot of STEM education, not a lot of art, but maybe I should have been an artist. So anyway, my point is I really enjoy putting out content that helps people become their best selves, and to treat their employees the way that they should be, so that they can be their best selves and have a greater impact. So that's the motivating force, and with a North Star of just being able to build more, create more myself. And this is a good symbiotic vehicle to do that.
I have a million more questions, but we'll have to save it for another time. Andrew, thank you so much.
Holden, awesome. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Awesome. We'll wrap it up there.